Welcome back, everybody. In this update, I know it's been a while, but we are back to the National Hurricane Center. I know last year I did a video on June 1st. I'm about a week and a half behind, but right now we are more focused on the tropics, and we're gonna be really looking at the tropics in the next couple days. I'm gonna try and, when I have time, make a video because I'm out of school, and I'm really appreciating you guys for all the support on my last live stream and my last video. That blew up much more than I thought, and I really appreciate you guys for all the views because that does show me all that. But I'm hoping to get to 210 subscribers in the next couple weeks, and hopefully we continue to gain more momentum as we get into the hurricane season. This is not my hurricane outlook, and I know I'm a little behind on it, but I am in the process of working on it. But I do not want to make you guys just wait forever into the end of June. So I decided to just make an outlook and discussion because there's not really much going on. Clearly, from the National Hurricane Center, as we are looking, we have no tropical cyclone activities not expected during the next 7 days. And this is very true. But I would say, what about after the 7 days? Maybe I can see something erupt in the Gulf of Mexico. I'm not promised on that, but there's a little thing that we like to call is gyro. Gyro. And it's the Central American gyro, and usually we get a low to spin in Central America with a lot of moisture, and usually what can happen is we get a lot of enhanced moisture. Let's take it, let's change the color here if we can. So let's go into a green. So usually what happens in this gyro, we get enhanced moisture in about the circle box I'm making. We get a enhanced moisture and some couple waves. And could we see something try and spin up short-lived? Yes, it is possible. And it does show on the ensembles. It does show on the models that, maybe we can sneak something in, but it's a very low chance as of right now. If anything, after the 10 days, I'll give it a 10% of something. If it was going to, it would be somewhere in this region. Very short, but it will be somewhere in here where we can get a quick spin, and we'll have to just watch and see how the environment works. But I'm also seeing a few more tropical storms in the Eastern Pacific. We've been already active in the East Pacific. We already got 3 named storms. We could be going for 4 or even 5 by the next couple weeks. That's the main area right now. This, a 10% in the next 10 days, okay? But I don't see any waves coming off here or not. I don't see anything here. I don't see anything out here in the MDR. I don't even see anything close to home or anything over here. So if there was any tropical wave to talk about, it will be in the Central America. There's some hints, maybe something, like I said, in the Gulf of Mexico, in the Bay of Campeche. But we're going to really have a discussion on that today and even tomorrow. I'm going to try and make it daily into my hurricane outlook and discussion. My for the year comes out, but please stay tuned, please stay updated, and this is the honest information. And before we even look at all that information, I like to take a look at some just casual things, like the wind shear. How is the wind shear in the Gulf of Mexico? Because we're going to be talking about the Gulf of Mexico in this one. So basically, in April, we had above actually shear for the part of March into April. Then April came, and we had a major decrease into like 50 knots, and that was much less than the historical average. As we went into May, we went all the way back up in June, in the beginning of June. But lately, we saw a massive decrease, and that has been continuing into July. Could we see it continue to decrease in the Gulf of Mexico dramatically, where we can get back under here? Yes, that is possible, and we're gonna have to keep an eye on that. But right now, shear is pretty much average in the Gulf of Mexico. It's low, it's nothing too much, and there's a chance. We look in the Caribbean. I don't know why we have no data over here, but what I could see is we had a major decrease in April, just like the Gulf of Mexico, and then a major increase from little bit of mid-April into May, and then we went back down significantly, and right before June, below a lot below normal, and then we went back up in June, and we're kind of fluctuating around the historical average. So for the shear, nothing too dramatically off. There's a little hints of right now it's kind of average, it's going down, and that's what is expected. Okay, that's the latest on the shear. Now let's take a look at the part of the MJO. Right now, we're in a check mark. Right now, we're in a favorable period. But in the next coming weeks, out in the Atlantic MDR, not so good. And let's use a different color. So red means no good. Okay. This means check mark the green, and over here we start getting into the unfavorable. But we start seeing an MJO, aka the Central American gyre, over in the Eastern Pacific and Central America. That does get stronger in the next little bit. And then when we do expect maybe towards the end of June that possible chance of tropical activity, this is when it's the most favorable. We see the most favorable MJO across Central America. I think it could happen at the end of June. And kind of in the Africa area, no good. We are talking about no good. It starts getting a little bit better as we get into the first week of July. But later in that first week, the MDR, once again, even into mid-July, the MDR is not the most favorable. But as we get into mid to late July, it's pretty normal, the MJO. It's pretty neutral. Okay? That's the latest. Let's take a look at the Saharan dry air. There's a lot going on in Africa. It's been plumes and plumes and plumes of dust. And that's expected. Nothing too out of the ordinary. Even into Gulf of Mexico has been a little bit dry too. Caribbean also. But we're starting to see that Central America gyre develop. Nothing too crazy. Okay. We look at the MJO forecast again. And let's take a look at some of these models here. Basically, what we can see here is this is the start is around here right now, the 11th. And what we see is everything goes into the neutral phase. We kind of go back out. We kind of like, as we go into the end of June, we get into a little bit more favorable. And that actually matches up with the graph I showed you. And then we get into 5 and 6, and then we go into deeper of 7, and then looks like we start coming back into the neutral phase. So the West Hemisphere and Africa, nothing really, but the 5 and 6 is actually really good. So we just have to wait and see. So that's just, I think the blend of models, kind of. But like the European, same thing here, kind of just fluctuate all around the 5 and 6, more on that side. That's why we get that enhanced moisture. That makes perfect sense. With all these other models too, pretty much the same thinking. Okay. We're just going to have to wait and see in the next coming days as this updates every day. But, like I said, nothing from the National Hurricane Center in the next 7 days. So, as we are taking a look at the GFS, I'm telling you, GFS like been very bad this year so far. It's been showing a lot of fantasy hurricanes. That is not going to happen. I know a lot of people are trying to make money off that. I'm not saying who, but there's been a lot of clickbait from it, and I don't like it. And I wasn't going to make a video on the GFS because I knew this has been happening the last few years. It overdoes the Central American gyre at the end of the day. But we take a look at the moisture for the GFS. This is like right now, and this is pretty normal. This is right with what I showed you guys earlier. And we kind of, let's just take it out a little bit. We're not even gonna wait. Let's take it June 16th, okay? Or around there. We see the Central American gyre. We get a potential tropical. Oh, we get a potential tropical depression or storm trying to develop with the GFS. We'll keep an eye on that. We get a wave in there. Then this is that Central American gyre that develops by mid-June, closer to the later June. This is when the MJO happens. And there's that low. A lot of moisture into the Gulf, over here, Eastern Pacific. More right now, the Central American gyre on the GFS is more in the Eastern Pacific. But, like I was saying, in that Bay of Campeche, there's some eye to watch, okay? We kind of see some moisture in the GFS. Actually, on the latest 12Z, I didn't even realize the 12Z's out, but it does show a storm to develop in the Bay of Campeche, and this is possible. The ensembles are on it too. But going into later June, and we get a nice tropical storm that can be reality. And we go into it goes into the border of Mexico, and that's very possible. We can see our first named storm come out of that. After that, moisture, we get some waves out of the African area. It's nothing too bad, but the Caribbean stays pretty moisture. And I think that's going to be the thing going into July too. And I think the GFS is actually could be on something with that one thing. But a very active MJO. We got the Azor high, we got the Bermuda high. I think nothing in the MDR going into July. But in the Caribbean, in the Bay Campeche, we're going to have to watch. It's going to be some enhanced moisture. The MJO is pretty good. We're watching those wind shear levels drop. And it's something to keep an eye on. Okay? This is that GFS look of things with that tropical storm that does go. And this is definitely possible. It's nothing out of the ordinary. And I can see the models actually pick up on that. But this would be for close to June 20th. Take it with a grain of salt. Nothing too much. But like I said, we have the enhanced moisture and the shear levels. Let's look at that. Because that's a little bit of a big thing there too. So the shear levels, not the best. Not the best shear, but not the worst. We kind of see working with the storm a little bit shear on the southwest side, but this is more fanning out, so this is kind of good for the storm up here. But a little southwest shear, not the best wind shear environment, but doable. And we kind of see it. That's why it doesn't strengthen rapidly, and then it goes into Mexico. Then the shear kind of gets better right before landfall. But there's something to just watch. Okay. If the GFS is out completely, I think the CMC, and that's the Canadian model, and Euro hinted at something in the 0Z about it. So, it is possible that we can get some ensembles, even in ensembles, both models have just even a little hint, and I look for the little detail. Okay, going into the future, nothing too much, but we go all the way into 240, and this is like June 20th. We don't really see much. What I do see is a little wave goes by the Gulf of Mexico, but we kind of see, instead of the GFS having a storm develop here, we get it in the Eastern Pacific. So that's another question too. And I've seen a few runs where it was into Mexico, like days.I had it into Eastern Pacific, actually even more. And actually, the latest CMC kind of pushed back on it. But we go back to the other runs, we had it more in the Gulf of Mexico. So there's some hints that there's going to be a storm in the Eastern Pacific or in the Gulf of Mexico. GFS right now in the Bay Campeche, CMC, aka the Canadian, is kind of in the Eastern Pacific. So those are the bigger questions. And the icon kind of has it too in the Eastern Pacific, but we do get an enhanced area of moisture, if that's a wave or not. So there's something to keep an eye on, and this is not even going out that far, but it's an eye. It's an eye to watch. And, this only goes out to 144 on the 6Z Euro, but the Year Z Euro, we didn't see any Eastern Pacific storm. What we saw was an enhanced amount of moisture. And kind of like I said, that yellow in the Bay Campeche, we kind of saw a little wave right here in the Bay Campeche. So we're going to have to wait to see the afternoon Euros run. We're going to have to watch the runs. And it's going to be, if it's going to be Eastern Pacific, if it's going to stay in the Central America and just be a rainmaker for Mexico, or do we get that into the Bay Campeche? That's the major question right now. And I do think we're going to get an MJO to develop. And then, we get a lot of moisture in that Bay Campeche. And then in the future, we kind of continue with little waves that goes through. So, Euro is not even completely off board. But I'm going to do this on the fly, and I want to show you guys the ensembles. Because I don't want to show you just the models and not the ensembles, and show you guys what I'm talking about with the support. Forecasts. So we go to 240. We're just going all the way to 240. I just wanted to show you guys the ensembles. Sorry about that. Okay, good. So this is that Euro model, and see what I mean? It's not completely out of the ordinary. We do get a few ensembles, even into tropical storm, in this area of the Bay Campeche. But we also get some ensembles down here. So what I'm going to do is, do we see the low go right here? Does it just go into Eastern Pacific, or does it go into the Gulf of Mexico? That's the bottom line. Okay? We're going to continue to watch this and see what happens. But I made this video to show you guys the discussion and what I'm talking about and what's the latest looks at the tropics. And yeah, everybody's saying, and trust me, everybody's saying right now the Atlantic hurricane season is not even going to happen because we're seeing this quiet period. But this is that same 0Z of the GFS, and this is what we were at. Some ensembles into the Bay Campeche, some in the East Pacific. Kind of a 50-50 split. But 6Z is out on the GFS, and what we saw is the same thing here too. A bit of ensembles into the Bay Campeche, a bit into the Eastern Pacific. And I don't think 12Z will be out enough. The forecast model goes to 150, and that's not going to be enough. But we do see some ensembles already making it into that part. So it's something to watch with, you guys. Nothing too much, and I'm going to honestly be wrapping it up here. I did want to show you something right here before we wrap it completely up. Is you have to remember we are in this part of June. This is where we are, you guys. We're in that black dotted line. We don't even see the activity start ramping up into almost mid July. And then we start seeing that increase, and especially in August and even into September and even towards the end of September. We still have a lot of activity. And it goes all the way into like December. Okay? This is at 1944 to 2020. So that's interesting. But bottom line is the Atlantic hurricane season hasn't even, it just started. There's a lot of time. Remember, it's 6 months of this, and it's a lot of time. So stay dry, everyone. Stay safe. I'll keep you guys updated. I'll even do some community posts if I could on my YouTube channel. So keep an eye on that. Maybe even some shorts. We'll have another discussion